Welcome to More Than Just a Girl, the podcast where we explore the incredible stories and achievements of women, like our guest today, who are breaking barriers and making a difference in their fields. I'm your host, Ramachia, and today we have this truly inspiring guest with us, Miss Destiny Longsworth. Destiny, thank you so much for joining us today. It's an honor to have you here. You're my first guest.
Oh, so honored.
So I'd like us to start by you introducing who is Destiny. Tell us.
Okay, so first of all, I want to start by saying thank you, Rami, for having me, especially as your first guest. It's a phenomenal podcast, I think, that is necessary, especially in Belize, where sometimes women don't have the inspiration to follow their dreams. So thank you for having the initiative. But who is Destiny Longsworth? Kind of a tricky question, right? Because for the internet, most people know me as the Belizean who studies in Amsterdam, but it didn't always start that way. So I'm from Corozal. I'm currently 21 years old, so I turned 22 in October. And I get that I'm young a lot. Like a lot of people are like, you're super young, but I feel not young, if you will. Yeah, but I currently was doing Bachelor's of Science and honors in politics, psychology, law, and economics, and I specialized in international and European law. But it didn't always start that way. So I did high school in Corozal. I went to Corozal Community College, and I was tasked with finding a major for myself. Okay, so they separated basically there in sciences or business. So that's the two options that you have. And I didn't really want to do any of them, but I heard from the people that apparently the three sciences is the most difficult. So I said, I like a challenge, right? Let me just try the three sciences. And so I majored biology, physics, and chemistry in high school, even though I always knew from a very young age that I wanted to do law, because I like arguing, if you will, is what my family would say. But I like to, bring forth arguments. Sometimes what people don't think is there actually exists, and it's very crucial for whatever issue is at hand. So yeah, that was my high school. And then I was 16 when I graduated. So I couldn't leave the country, which is what I knew I wanted to do from a very young age. So I had to do a sixth form. So then I came to St. John's Junior College. And I did history and literature because I really liked literature and I really like history, but keeping in mind that I wanted to pursue law. So it was a bit difficult as well to write my motivational letter for law schools on why is Destiny doing a history and literature degree, right?
Yeah.
I like to explore as many avenues as I can just to see what I like and what I don't like particularly, knowing that I will pursue law eventually. And I really did like history and literature. Same with the sciences. I was really good at it, but it wasn't something that I could see myself doing forever. So I finished 2 years in John's, and then I decided to apply for law schools. And I applied in the UK. I got into some, and then I applied in Amsterdam, which is where I was for 3 years. And the decision was quite of a rushed one, I would say, because I didn't put much thought into it. So in the UK, I applied for law and politics, and then the long list I mentioned for Amsterdam, right? So I said, okay, I know that's not going to be the finished journey of my studies, so I might as well get experience in Amsterdam. I did a little psychology and econ, which I didn't like econ that much. Okay, so I definitely now know I don't want to pursue economics. So yeah, I just ranted for quite a long time, but yeah, about me personally, that was like my studies. I'm the eldest child of 2, so I have a younger brother, and yeah, I enjoy sports. I enjoy speaking. I really like speaking, even though sometimes people tell me I speak too much, but I don't think there's such thing, right?
I think so. I've never learned like what are they funny about?
But yeah, that's a bit on me. Okay.
Yeah. You were salutatorian at your high school.
Yes.
Your high school, I could imagine, was a mix of boys and girls.
Yes.
What was it like to be a female salutatorian. How did your peers take that? Now, bear in mind that this show is about the woman perspective, the female perspective. So I will be nudging you in that direction, right? So what was that like? And you excelled over both men and women, but how was it for you?
You know, that's an excellent question that I sometimes think about, because there are some stereotypes that, okay, maybe men should be more into sports and women should be more into their studies, or like they also separated music and home economics. As you'd imagine, the classes for home economics were filled with women.
Yes.
Right? And the one or two guys that wanted to be in class with the women. And then you have music, which is filled with guys, basically. And, you know, other women, but mostly you see a division between music, men, and then home economics, female. So I chose music. I must say, like, defying stereotypes, if you will. But what it was like to excel academically, I didn't make much of a distinction in that route, but there was a distinction in, for example, I did a lot of sports in high school. So I did track and field, all the throws, and then I also did basketball where I was team captain. And you see special attention geared towards the male teams, and then you have the female teams, which comprise of, if a basketball team needs 5 members, there's 6 members on the team. For the male team, where it was like everyone tried out, everyone wanted to be there. They had options of who they wanted. But I didn't get much girls doing these sports, which I really wish I did, because there's so much talent. Like, you see them, but they're just not being nurtured as they should. So that was one perspective. And then I also did student council, which was honestly fairly divided, I must say, like 50-50 women and men. And so I was first public relations officer, and then I became president for, I don't even recall, maybe like 2 years.
Oh, that's have you?
So I didn't see that much change from the woman's perspective, or maybe it could have been because of the lens that I went into high school with, because from a very young age, so for example, my mom would always say, because I have a younger brother, that we're equal. There's basically no gender roles. If I have to wash the dishes, he also has to wash the dishes, right? Which is something that was quite separated, I see, in Corozal specifically sometimes, which I try to shed light, because if one person has to do it, I think everyone else has to do it. Like, your gender shouldn't define what roles you take on in society, right? So I went into school a lot with that mindset. So I noticed quite a few things, but for me specifically, there wasn't like a specific thing I had to overcome, I must say.
Okay, that's amazing. Well, it looked like times have changed, because when I was in high school, luckily for me, I was in an all-girls high school.
Yeah.
Things were a bit different when it came to women and how we were perceived.
Okay.
The gender roles were always there. I have 3 boys.
Okay.
I don't have any daughters. So with them, boys wash dishes, boys cook, boys clean. There's no girls to do it anyway. So they have to learn from a very early age that it's a job for everyone to do, not only girls.
Exactly.
So I totally get where you're coming from, that it's something that has to be brought up from home. I'm glad that your parents brought that up with you guys, and that you're continuing it. So let's move on to your experience in Amsterdam. You were pretty young to be in Amsterdam. I myself have never been. So
you should come.
That I watch your videos, and they're like, oh my God, so cool. So moving to Amsterdam, and specifically during COVID, that must have been like a big night and day.
Oh yeah.
Or entering the twilight zone kind of situation. So what were some of your biggest challenges faced there, and being solo? Because you went alone, right? You didn't go with anyone, no other Belizean student with you there. You just were the girl from Corozal in Amsterdam. The Belizean in Amsterdam, yeah. So tell us what that was like.
So yeah, when I moved to Amsterdam, I was 18, and it was during peak COVID season. So Belize had a quarantine at that time. So my family couldn't join me to travel, and it was my first time traveling abroad by myself. And it was nerve-wracking, but quite empowering, I must say, because you have to sort of figure everything out on your own. If you don't know something, you need to ask people. So that made me feel really comfortable with communicating with other people, because I feel like sometimes when we're in Belize for a prolonged period of time, we exist in a bubble. So we don't really know how other people interact. Different cultures will interact with you differently. Some people are colder, some people are nicer, and you just need to kind of read the room, if you will, to know who do I ask, when should I ask, what should I ask. So that was the beginning journey. I was quite nervous, and it takes usually to go there like 20 hours. I got there, and then I was super confused because now I'm in this random place. I didn't do much research on it. I just spawned there basically. And I don't speak the language because they speak Dutch over there. I don't have any family. I don't have any friends. I was quite confused as to what to do. But I met a lot of lovely people on my first day that kind of helped me assimilate into the area. They're also international students. Yeah, and that was basically my journey there. And then, of course, living there, the weather is completely different. So now we have winters. I go from a summer all year long to a winter. It's raining, it's hailing, it's snowing, and it's super windy at the same time. So I didn't have the clothes to prepare for that type of weather. So that's something that I had to kind of sort out as well. Like, what is best for this type of weather? When should I wear this? When shouldn't I wear this? And it was, everyone there is tall. So I'm 6 feet tall. So
you fit in.
I fit in.
I know you walked through the door just now, and I was like, man, woman of the Amazon. I love tall women, and I just vertically challenged, but I love looking at big, dominant-looking women.
Yeah.
I think it just gives a different impact.
Yeah.
And it makes people view you differently because you look down on the world.
That's a nice way to put it. I always thought the world looks up to me, but
That's right.
a lot of perspective. Yeah, so I was alone then, no family. The cuisine is different. So I'm used to rice and beans, chicken and salad, nothing. Like, what am I? They have like red herring, so they eat raw fish. And I was like, okay, let's not go there. I think it's too early on to try that. Let's maybe try again next year, you know? And of course, in Amsterdam right now, specifically challenging for a lot of international students is that there's a housing crisis. There just isn't housing. So I was basically homeless for like 2 months. And I went from like hostel to my friend's couch to someone's spare bedroom and things like that. And my mom was like, you can come back home. And I was like, that is not an option for me. Like, I have to see it through. Like, I need to graduate at any cost. So some people did end up dropping out because it was like, you don't have housing. The university isn't helping you find housing. So they admit so much international students, and then they don't have where to house them. And then the Dutch people are also upset because now they can't find housing. So everyone can't find housing now. But I don't know. I was quite happy while I was homeless. I must say, I lived quite a fulfilling life. So I lived at a hostel once, and it was me in a room and then 6 random men.
What was that like?
That was a terrifying moment for me. Maybe in like the first night, there was one of them who just would reach over and just watch me sleep, and I was like, okay, let's maybe like not do that. But sort of asserted my dominance to a certain group of them. There were like 3 or 4 students from the UK, a group of friends that they came for a birthday. Not sure if they're students. And I was like, okay, this ends here. Listen, guys, I need to study as well. Like, I'm not here to party, like, you know, having a fun time. Like, I need to study. So can you guys just please be a bit quiet, or like, and they accepted it. Like they were like, okay, maybe we should go out this time so that she could study there. And I got a bit comfortable at one point, and I was like, can you go get me some water? And they get it, but it's all about like asserting yourself.
Yeah.
Imagine if I'm scared. I feel like if I would have presented myself in a scared way, that sometimes people feed off of your fear. So it's very important to be confident in whatever you do, for me, because it presents you in a different way, right? And how people react to you. So that was one of my bumps, if you will, in my Arizona. Yeah, but it was okay. I turned out fine, I think.
So far, so good. You're here.
Oh,
You're fine. Okay, so switching gears a little bit, you have your bachelor's thesis focused in the international impacts of development-induced displacement in marginalized communities. That's a long title. So could you share a little bit about your findings and why that topic specifically? Because that's a really intense topic.
Yes. So basically how they do it at UFA, which is the University of Amsterdam, is that in my course, they split you in different groups depending on, it has to be a thesis that involves two of your majors. So for example, mine was law and politics. And I got the group on internal displacement, which is very interesting to me because internal displacement is basically when a person, due to circumstances such as extreme weather, so for example, like a hurricane, like disasters or crime or things like that, is displaced within their country. So the state has the obligation to respond for their people. I think that's super interesting because sometimes the causes of these situations is due to the state. And how does a state then react to something that they caused? So I wanted to dive into development-induced displacement specifically because I see a lot of gentrification happening in this side of the world. And when I explained this to my supervisor, they didn't understand what I was saying. So they said,
Culture clash, right?
culture clash, like insane. They said, gentrification?
Like,
What do you mean? Like, you changed to oat milk or something? I was like, no, it's far, far beyond that, right? And I chose to do Mexico because I previously wrote all my papers about Belize, and it was terribly difficult to find information on Belize. So I couldn't be here in person to go to the libraries and to manually read all the books. So I had to choose like the closest to me. So I really viewed it. And right now, Mexico is the third on the list of largest internally displaced in America. Okay, maybe I should explain development-induced displacement. It's basically gentrification, and I termed it as state-led, whether that be violent or not, which is somewhat related to maybe what you do because I focused a lot on road projects, dams, or like buildings, things like this that the government would put in places where they think that there must be an economic boost, but there's sort of like a adverse effect where when they try to help, it does the opposite because they don't take in mind marginalized communities. And the third part of my thesis is basically that this marginalization is intersectional. So a woman does not suffer as much as a woman of color or an indigenous woman, right? Because indigenous women have been found to be more prone to violence. So if you have like, let's say a Caucasian woman and an indigenous woman of higher socioeconomic class and lower socioeconomic class, there's going to be a group of people that are going to suffer the most. And what I try to say is that it's not, okay, you don't view these social identities as separate, but they're conjoined and they add even further to the marginalization that these people are suffering. So I found that even when they are state-led, places where they can go, it doesn't help because they've pushed them out to the periphery. And then you have these women, because I focused basically mainly on women, so gender, race, and socioeconomic class, and how these clash together. So if you have a single mother, let's say, and you push her out to the periphery because she can no longer afford housing in the city, she now has to worry about how her child is going to get to school, how she's going to get to work. There's no childcare, there's no healthcare in these areas. Okay, so then there comes a point where the state notices that this group of people is suffering, basically. So they try to help, but they don't do it in a way that impacts them positively. And I looked extensively into international law, regional framework, and also state framework specific to Mexico. But most related for Belize would then be the regional legal framework. And basically, I went through all of these laws and all of these guidelines and everything, and I noticed that they do point out, okay, indigenous people have the right to their territory. Okay, maybe women should not be displaced to places where their kids can't, because it's basic human rights that you're taking away from these people. But when they define internal displacement, they don't define state-led or development-led. So you have a whole group of people that are taken out of the equation that can't find remedies because they're not defined under a law. So it works.
It's like the saying that we have in these: progress brings problems.
Exactly.
But the problems can be analyzed or should be analyzed for the project. I totally understand where you're coming from with that, because here in Belize, like you say, we don't have enough data readily available. The data might be there because we have a lot of projects that pay for these different studies and different papers that are written, but it's not readily available and accessible for us to just pick up and read all the time. But I know, working with a lot of the projects that we do, we normally have stakeholder meetings, and there's the environmental and social impact for the area that we'll be working. But sometimes, even when you're trying as hard as you can to capture everyone, the women are always left out, because the women can't come to those meetings all the time because they have to stay home and mind the kids. They don't have who to mind the kids. So I totally see the interest there, because every time we do a project, I always am a little bit softer for the women that are living somewhere and they don't have the same means as everybody else. Because unfortunately, in our culture, we have a lot of still have a lot of teenage pregnancies, and our culture has young marriage, and you don't get a chance to really grow up. I mean, I myself got pregnant at 16, had my first kid at 17. So I know the chances are against us when we're in that state. So I'm glad you looked at that, and I would hope that what you did your thesis on would be able to reflect back and help us here in Belize some way. Because knowledge is power, but sharing is caring, right?
Exactly.
So keeping the information trapped, keeping those documents and all these papers that everybody goes and writes trapped, that for me is like, so what are we doing?
Exactly.
You know, what are we doing if we're not trying to use all of the investigation that everyone does to fix what is broken? You know, so I'm glad you did that topic. That is really close to home. Mexico is our neighbor.
Yeah.
And like you said, Mexico, because it's difficult for Belizeans to get information about Belize, even if it's there.
Yeah.
It might not be on the web. It might not be in a digital library. We have issues with that. Even with our road designing, sometimes even things as like rainfall data we can't get. So I could imagine this would be even more difficult.
Yeah.
So you were chairwoman of an NGO aimed to make education accessible to underprivileged communities. Tell us a little bit about that, because that sounds pretty awesome.
Yes, it was such a fulfilling experience, I must say, and it pushed me towards not only fundraising for these communities, but now I also want to get into the field, to fully understand, because there's so many people that don't have the access to an education, and I don't have to go very far away because it's not a right in the Belizean constitution. You don't have a right to an education. per se. But basically what we do is that we raise funds in Amsterdam. So it's based in Amsterdam. It's called Students for Children. It's a non-governmental organization. And we raise funds and then we get these project proposals from abroad. So currently we have projects in Uganda, India, we had in Mexico, Honduras, Cameroon, places like this, which I was currently trying to diversify, which I don't know if you saw, but I was in like the news once trying to tell the Belizeans, please send us project proposals. Like, we want to fund you. And the initiatives are basically twofold. It's either infrastructure. So we build schools or bathrooms or things that people need to get a quality education. Or we have the more direct ones, such as workshops, or we get them bicycles because sometimes the schools are too far for them to get to, school supplies. And also we have specifically aimed towards women. So we funded these sewing machines, so that the women could learn to, then we had the workshops, so the women could learn to sew, learn to make reusable pads, for instance, because period poverty is very much still a thing that some women just aren't able to afford the necessary products that they need monthly. So we try to make it sustainable so that it lasts for a very long time. So by teaching these women to make this, it's not like just giving them, here's a box of pads, have it for a month, and then you figure out the rest. So we're giving them a skills to hopefully they have for a lifetime, and they could teach other people how to do it as well. So that's basically what we do at Students for Children. And it's actually a full women board. So I have 5 board members, not including myself, and they're all women from different places of the world, who sort of just come together to raise funds for these projects. Try to get a male into the NGO, but it's just we don't get much interest from men in these in these fields. So yeah.
So you said you tried to get Belize to send a project proposal.
Yes.
What would one have to do to make a proposal
So
to NGO?
basically you just go on our website and there's like a proposal form and you have to like fill it out, for example. So if I go to, let's say, a very secluded village in Belize and I see they really need maybe a library. They don't have a library to read and to spend time. I write all of this down, my motivation. Why do I want to help these? Like, also, we're sort of a third party, so we just give the funds. So we also need another NGO to give the funds to overview it. But it doesn't necessarily have to be an NGO. If you find like a school, the principal could then become the second person. It's all on our website, www.studentsforchildren.org. If anyone listening again wants to maybe check it out, I feel like I really wanted to diversify our portfolio and have Belize as a part, because I feel very, towards Belize, like I need to help, but you also need to seek help to get help. So
I guess that's something that you develop when you study abroad.
Yeah.
You become a little more patriotic. You miss home so much that you love home even more.
Oh yeah.
You start realizing how much you took for granted while you're here. Believe
100%.
is indeed the land of the free.
100%.
Although we don't believe it, although we complain about the police department, we complain about everything that we can under the sun. When you're not here, you realize how much you can do, how much possibilities we have here. Belize is indeed the land of the free.
You really feel it.
Yeah, I really feel it. So I'm glad that you're willing to give back and to help. And I hope that someone listening does take you up on that offer and checks the website out. I myself might go looking to see what school or where we could do some help. So you're only 21, you said, right?
Yeah.
And you've done so much things. This is awesome. You've even been serving as a director of public prosecutions office as an intern. Give us some juice on that one.
Oh, that was definitely an experience. So I interned at the Director of Public Prosecution, the office, for a month during summer, right? So I tried to engage in projects during the summer. And it really taught me a lot because I'm accustomed where I studied to a civil law approach, and Belize is a common law approach. So continental Europe is civil law, and then the Commonwealth, so the UK, Belize, and places like these are a Commonwealth system. So I sort of learned how it differs. Like, I need to look into acts to prove a point and things like these. Then you have the court cases, the bail hearings, and which I attended quite a few of. It was really intense. And I sat there the entire day and I just listened and I wrote notes. I really thought about what our country is facing right now. We see a lot of gender-based violence, a lot of incest is super high right now in Belize, and it saddens you. It really takes a part of your soul out. And then I also recognized while I was there that maybe sometimes the people who are trying to bring the law forward don't have enough protection. So it's a very heavy thing to go into courtroom and be in a murder trial and defend the innocent, right? And then you have guilty on, well, if you're proven guilty, you're guilty, right? Looking you in your face, looking at the family of the victims, and it's a very emotional thing that it really drained me. It took me like 2 days to recover from a kiss, but yeah, it was an experience for sure. So I definitely think that there has to be a bit more protection because some attorneys do risk a lot of their livelihood, if you will, because you have to engage with these types of people, and sometimes there's not enough protection so that they're adequately protected for the line of work that they do. So that's something that I noticed as well. But aside from that, it was quite a fun experience, I think. And I'll definitely do it again.
How did that help you to look at our legal system? Do you did this help you form an opinion of how Belize is versus what you expected before you actually sat there that summer and experienced it firsthand?
So I took a constitutional law course. So I sat there and I read constitutions for the fun of it. So I'm reading Belize's constitution, and at times it seems a bit outdated, which I believe is something that they're already working on, like amending the constitution, writing it over. It's quite outdated because we got our constitution, we based it off of the UK one when we got our independence. And it really changed my perspective because some of the wording may seem a bit off, right? So in continental Europe, you have equality for all, like men, women are all the same. And then some of the wording in the Belize constitution is very gendered. If you go specific, gender specific, which I think is something that we should maybe look into and change because times are changing, right? We're not still a colony of the UK. We don't need to still have this constitution dragging us behind. Like it's time for a bit of change. So that's one of the things that I really saw and would like to address if there ever came the chance,
Okay, so let's bring it a little bit back to home. So you are one of the first women in your family to achieve a university degree. Mm-hmm. I know in most families in Belize, not if you have 2 or 3 in a family of 10, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So you are one of the first in your family. Hopefully there are more coming along. Tell us, what is that like to the rest of your siblings? Does it serve them as encouragement? Do you think that you can now be put in a position to help them, to encourage them? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so having that title is a bit of like a lot of expectations are put on you. So I told my friends this a lot, like my degree isn't for me. My degree is for my family. My degree is for my country. So it gives you extra motivation sort of to try to aim for the highest that you can because it's not about you anymore, right? It's about everyone else and everyone who came before you, women who weren't either allowed to get an education or just couldn't get an education. So I hope that it inspires a couple of people to pursue education if that's what they want to, because I feel like I speak a lot on education. I'm a quite big advocate for education, but there's also not anything wrong with not wanting to pursue an education. So if you want to start a business, I think that's totally valid and you should just go for it. Whatever you want to do, whatever aspect in your life you want to pursue, I think you should do it. And I think that's the main takeaway from everything that I do. Just because education for me is a big thing doesn't mean that it has to be a big thing for you. Some people just don't want to, or they can't get an education. You know what I mean? Because their brain isn't wired a certain way. I feel like we have to acknowledge that everyone's different. And I'm not trying to push an agenda that everyone get a PhD now, right? No. But I'm trying to say everyone pursue what you want to pursue. There's no losing if you never try, right? No winning if you never try.
That's right. I'm glad you said that, because I was having a conversation with my husband over the weekend, actually, about what he thought my objective of this women empowerment, in his words, women empowerment.
Yeah.
So soon everybody will know you for being a feminist more than an engineer. He likes to push my limits and question me.
Okay.
So that I know if my motives are genuine.
Okay.
So we had a little discussion about traditional wives.
Okay.
I think he thought that I had a different perspective on traditional wives.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's okay to want to just not have an education and raise family? Or do you think that you are conditioned by society to want that based on where you come from?
That's quite an interesting psychological question, if you will. And I think anyone you'd ask would probably have a different answer. I honestly think that right now what we're seeing in the world, we see an opposite agenda of people trying to fit in, not trying to fit traditional wives because they want to be traditional wives, but because they don't want to be judged by the wokeness out there that I'm a traditional wife, so there must be something wrong with me. I think any avenue in your life that you choose to explore is valid at any given time. If you want an education, go for an education. If you want to start a family, start a family. It's all valid. Once you do it, not because you're forced to do it, but because you want to do it. And there is a fine line that people don't recognize is there, but it actually is, right? Some people just want to raise a family at home.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. And there's quite nothing wrong with it.
And it's valid.
That is a part of what I think all those hundreds of years that women have been fighting for equality, it's not about this pissing contest about who can do the most.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the choice and the power to choose what you want.
Yeah.
You want to be an engineer, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be an artist, you want to be a stay-at-home mom and have 10 kids, you want to have one kid, you want to be the cat lady with 10 cats in your house, you want to be the pug lady. It's all okay.
Exactly.
As long as you said it, it's your
Choice. That's the key
and
word.
I believe that a lot of women don't realize that we have the power to choose. We don't have to be a super mom by having a super job, being an entrepreneur, or we don't have to do any of that. We have to do what makes us happy.
Exactly.
And if raising a family makes you happy, that's okay.
Yeah. And if you want to do both, that's okay.
Even better. If you feel that you can handle more than just that, that's fine. And that's where I think that a lot of times people mistake all our empowerment that we're trying to do with each other and trying to lift up young girls. They're thinking that we're pulling them away from the family when we're not.
No.
We're just trying to open their eyes to see you can't be what you don't know.
Exactly.
You can't want to be an astronaut if you've never looked up in space.
Yeah.
Right? So it depends on where you come from, where you want to go, and how you look at life.
Exactly.
So the opportunity and the possibility that we have been fighting for and we will continue to fight for is to be given the power to choose. And I am glad that you said it right. Not everybody needs to be going for education, which, yes, education is good because at any point it's good to be able to help your kids with the homework and help and know a little bit about everything, but it doesn't mean that you have to shy away from having a family.
I think when we started to push the education agenda back in time, it was usually to establish independence within a woman. So if you had a terrible situation at home and you're educated and you have a job, you're able to get up and leave. But when you have a choice to do whatever you want to do, then there's no need to fight for an independence that you already have. So I think it will be amazing when the time comes that everyone could just do whatever they feel fit to do with their lives. But for now, I think we haven't quite gotten there yet, but we've done tremendous stride towards it. And I think that's beautiful.
For sure. I can tell you for sure because in my field, but that's another story. We'll leave that one for another day. So circling that topic a little bit, the dating scene. What is it like for an independent, strong woman like yourself? I mean, you walk in this room and you look like you own it. You seem to be this very self-confident, dominant, independent, strong woman. How is dating like? I told you we were going to touch a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
As young girls want to know a little bit of everything. Even older women want to know, how can you have it all?
Yeah.
So what's that like?
You know, that's a very interesting topic that's touched quite a lot in my family. Like, understand novio, where's the boyfriend Destiny? At some point it was like, okay, they shy you away from dating and then you hit the 20s and they're like, okay, what about we need to see someone now? No, but presenting as an independent woman, which I feel like that I am, I definitely think that it's harder because you don't take anything. If someone comes to you the wrong way, I'm so sorry.
Right.
You know, goodbye. Like, I'm not in a point in my life where I feel like I need to be dating, if that makes sense. Because I have so much other things that I want to accomplish first, right? So, for example, I want to finish my education and I want to volunteer in Africa and I want to get a job here and I want to do all of these things that dating for me has been pushed back several notches all the way down. and to me, I feel totally fine about that. But I have also friends that I met in Amsterdam that are super confident women, super smart, super business oriented, and they're in long, healthy relationships. And I just think it's a personal choice. Like, if you want to share your life with someone, then I definitely think you should go for it. But if you want to go solo for a while and explore the world, I definitely think that's also fine. But yeah, it definitely is harder for me because I'm 6', right? I'm very loud. I'm very confident. I say what's in my mind all the time. So I don't think it attracting people per se, but that's okay, you know.
That's funny. That's fine. That's fine. No, I get you. I totally see where being independent, strong woman makes it a little difficult.
Yeah.
Especially in our culture.
Yeah.
Because I work with a lot of men.
Mm-hmm.
And I know sometimes at the beginning it's hard for men to accept a woman to speak her mind really. Exactly. So with that, it comes a lot of, luckily for me, I was married by the time I graduated. Okay. But I see the potential for it to be difficult if you're a strong woman because then you are viewed a little differently. Yeah. People are more intimidated by you. Yeah. And especially if you have that alpha female energy. But what men sometimes don't realize is that you need the alpha male energy to bring out more of your feminine energy. So,
but my philosophy is like, if it comes, it comes. And if not, if someone's going to be with you, it's because they're accepting who you already are. There's no need for me to be quieter and
That's right.
stoop a bit lower and stand a bit slouchy to be a bit light. I don't think there's
Dumb yourself down.
exactly.
Never do that.
If someone is willing to accept you, then I think it's totally fine. But
Yeah.
never.
Well, I'm glad you have that perspective on life, especially with the dating life. And in our culture, like you say, when you're young, they don't want you to even look at boys.
Yeah.
As you hit 20s, where are the grandchildren?
Oh,
But I'm glad that you put your ducks in a row and you made your mind up on what you want to do. And like you said, you don't go looking for a lover or a partner. They normally find their way into your life without you even knowing.
exactly.
And it's no rush. All right. So looking ahead, what are some of your future goals and how do you plan to make those goals impact Belize positively? Since you've spoken a lot about trying to do something back for Belize. I know it's a long shot. Sometimes we want to do things for our country and it's sometimes just a dream and you get caught up with so much that you have to do that you might not be able to.
Yeah.
But at least share your dreams with us. What are the future goals and
So my future goals right now is I've applied to some masters in the UK, masters of law, and then I want to do a practicing degree in law. So that's another 2 years. So I have at least 3 more years of school to go if I decide not to continue and start working and stuff. But those are my academic goals for right now. And a lot of people ask me, like, don't you get tired of studying? I don't get tired of studying. I quite literally enjoy sitting down and learning. And people think I'm weird for that, but I really enjoy studying. But a lot of people also ask, how do you get the motivation to do it, right?
that's right.
Because passion establishes your dreams, but dedication is what truly gets you to it. And what I find is easier to do is to separate your goals. You have one overarching goal and then you separate that. So, for example, when I wanted to do uni abroad, I thought, okay, how will I get there? I need a high GPA, but I also need to diversify myself. Like I need to do sports. I need to engage in the community. I need to do all of these things to reach this goal because it can be overwhelming when you have a large goal and you don't know where to begin, right? So then if you separate it into smaller sections, then maybe you could get there a lot smoother, efficiently in my motion. So that's just some advice. But yeah. And then I also really liked the NGO environment that I was in. So I want to start an NGO in Belize, upcoming, because I think that the more help that we have, we suffer a lot from brain drain. So people study abroad and then they stay abroad because sometimes they just earn more money there, or sometimes they enjoy their life there. But I think that if we sit down and we complain about the country that we live in without doing anything about it, then nothing is ever going to happen. So eventually I do want to come back to Belize once I've established all of my academic aspirations and also job-wise, because I also want to get experience outside to see what works for everyone, what doesn't work for this country, what does work, and how can I implement that into Belize specifically, because of course the cases will be different because every people, every culture is different. So we need to see how that fits in. Also, I think it started just as a crazy dream of me saying once when I was super young, I'm going to be the Prime Minister of Belize.
Yeah, I heard you say that once on your videos.
Yes. And so actually that's how I started introducing myself to people abroad. So I was like, I'm Destiny and I'm the future Prime Minister of Belize. I
Love it.
so people are like, that's how some people know me as abroad because I'm establishing myself already. I feel like I'm manifesting it for me, you know?
Yeah.
So I do want to do that because I just think that so much can be, Belize has so much potential and so much can be done. It's literally heaven for a lot of people, right?
Sure.
So that's my future goal. We'll see. I'll keep you posted about that.
We'll be looking out for it. Believe you me. So finally, what advice would you give to young women or even older women who are passionate about human rights, equality, and accessibility to education and opportunities of that sort. What advice would you give to these?
I think I would just advise, because we have a very specific culture that we care a lot about what other people have to say about us. I think we need to put that on the back burner and really think, what do I want for the world? What do I want for my community? What do I want for my family? Do I want education to be accessible for everyone? Do I want a peaceful, no war type of world? And then you see what you really want, and then you just go for it without worrying what other people have to say about you. What will my neighbors say? What will my uncle's aunt's daughter say? You really just have to go for it. If you want to advocate for human rights, start a protest if you want to do that, you know. Really push yourself to what you want to go towards, because if you don't do it, no one else is going to do it for you, unfortunately. So just engage in your community, engage in anything that you want to do, and it will 9 out of 10 times work out. And if the 10th time doesn't work out, then you just try again. And
Try the 11th time.
it's gonna work out eventually. So my motto is just go for it. Just always go for it. Don't think about what other people have to say. Definitely.
So Destiny, I am so happy that you joined us today. I know that some of our listeners out there will be more than exciting to try to venture into law, maybe reach out to you, maybe, who knows, an NGO contacts you to go and cheer them.
Yeah.
And we can get some funds and do some great stuff here in Belize.
Definitely.
I'll be looking forward to hearing more about Destiny. And with a name like Destiny, come on, no.
It was destiny. It really was. Yes.
All right. Well, here you heard it first. We got the first interview with the female Prime Minister of Belize.
Here you go.
Destiny.
Thank you so much for having me.
More than just a girl, right?
More than just a girl, always.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. Your support helps us to reach more listeners and continue to share these important stories. I'm Ramachia, and I'll see you on the next episode. Until then, keep dreaming big, breaking barriers, and blazing your own trails.